So I think the theme of today's readings are everything is new and improved. You know, we live in a world where we're constantly being told to look for something new, for something exciting. How many times have we seen a product marked new and improved, or the new iPhone coming out that can do so much more than the old iPhone? And a lot of times we can't blame advertisers, because many times things are new and improved, but can we really live without them? We're constantly living in a world of rapid change. In many cases, an item we buy this week will be outdated by the next week. How many times have we bought a car and as soon as you take it off the lot, it's worth much less? But I think we also face the idea that not everything that is claimed to be new and improved really is truly new and improved. And so today in our readings, we hear in that reading, a new earth, a new heaven. And we can believe truly that God has in fact creating something totally new, radically new and improved, and something none of us can live without. The biblical authors aren't talking about something that's just new and improved for today and it'll get better and they'll improve it later. They're talking about something that cannot be replaced. The resurrection of Jesus Christ has changed everything. His resurrection has broken the bonds not only of death, but our bonds of being trapped. We are meant to be free now, completely and totally. Jesus gives us not only a new earth, a new heaven, a new Jerusalem, but also a new commandment. And he's referring to this newness that defeats death, that frees us of judgment, and allows our final destiny to be welcomed into the kingdom of heaven. This is an act that only God can do. In the book of Revelation, it talks about that newness, and it gives a rich vision with symbolic language. The new heaven, the new earth, are meant to completely replace the reality of the current heaven and earth. We are supposed to find ourselves in the New Jerusalem. We are a people who the book of Revelation refers to or personifies as a bride. That marital imagery is meant to be a loving union with God and his people. We are not only his beloved, we are meant to be with him for all eternity. This is a new reality that is supposed to overwhelm us with joy, a time of unending happiness. Can we really believe that? Is it possible in our hearts that we can feel that at some point in time we will feel a joy that could never end? Well, in this world, of course, joy always at some point does come to an end. Something happens that shatters it or shakes it. But God is talking about a new heaven, a new earth, where joy will be so overwhelming that it could never end, will never end. And that has been accomplished. Believe it or not, when Jesus Christ bursts forth from the grave, he completely alters heaven and earth, creating that new heaven and earth. And he invites us, his followers, to enter into that new Jerusalem, where we will dwell with God in their midst. And it might even be better to say that we will dwell in the midst of God. The awe-inspiring vision declares that everything is to be transformed. All the earth, all of heaven, all of us. We are going to be transformed into something we can't even begin to imagine. And how does that begin? Well, in the gospel today, Jesus gives his disciples a simple instruction. 3 words. Love one another. See, sounds easy, but of course we know it is very difficult. And he speaks of a love that requires total commitment and trust. It's the kind of love that God gives to each of us, a love that should be a model of love that we have for others. And when we look at the demands of this love, we should realize how revolutionary that love is and how much of a change it requires from each and every one of us. And though none of us, or most of us, are not called to be missionaries like Paul and Barnabas in our first reading, we're still called to an unselfish love that serves others, just as the early Christians were called to that love and freely gave of themselves. We face that same call. We face that same challenge. Can we love unselfishly? Can we commit ourselves to helping others, to lifting up others in our world? This new kind of love that Jesus calls us holds out a serious requirement from us. We are called to open doors that we have closed in relationships. We all have relationships where we've walked away from something. Can we open those doors? Can we be forgiving and loving? Can we respond to others' people's help? Can we appeal to the cry of others? Can we be forgiving? Can we see other people's mistakes and not hold it against them? This love will open our eyes to the fact that we overlook many people in the world. Can we realize that there are poor people in the world who are a part of our family? That we are responsible for helping them and lifting them up, no matter where they are in the world today? Can we help those who live in despair and show them that we love them and care about them? Can we be an instrument of peace in the world today? Maybe in our little community, in our little life, in our families, in our workplaces. Can we be that instrument of peace? They will know that we are Christians by our love. They will truly know if we can give love to each other and to those around us. Our love needs to be unconditional. That is an extremely difficult command, but it is what God desires of us. You know, John's vision in the book of Revelation of the new heaven and the new earth are only visions of the future because Christians have failed to make it a part of the present. Jesus has risen from the dead, and everything is made new. That has already happened. The old order has passed away. We have entered the age of fulfillment of God's plan for salvation. And if we expect to be perfect, we're probably badly mistaken. And yet, it is within our power to change the world, to change our country, to change our neighborhood, and to change our families, to genuinely love one another as Jesus has commanded us, to be sincere in our concern for the world. It's up to us to make this world a better place through spreading the Christian message of love, a love that is unselfish. And that unselfishness means that we're not worried about the consequences that we have to pay or the sacrifice that we have to pay. As I've said before, all love ultimately requires sacrifice. Every parent sacrifices for their child in one way or another throughout their lives. And children ultimately sacrifice for their parents as their parents grow older and they care for them. We all are called to love unselfishly, to sacrifice things that we may want to have so that we can give to others. That's the love that Jesus has commanded his disciples to follow. That's the love he has called us to follow as well. You know, the Second Vatican Council had a message that appeared shortly after it. It said, "We are an Easter people." And that slogan is really true. We are supposed to be an Easter people. The resurrection has occurred, and it should change everything in the world, even though sometimes it feels as if it hasn't. We have been raised with Jesus from the dead, and death no longer has any power over us. And we should be able to use that power to conquer the darkness of this world through love. There is chaos and evil in the world, but we have been given the power to overcome it. The question for us is, are we going to use the power of God's love to overcome the chaos and evil of this world? What is holding us back from transforming the world in which we live?